4 vibrant lives full of promise and dreams extinguished in an instant on Malibu's infamous Dead Man's Curve. Niamh, Peyton, Asha, and Deslyn were just starting their lives when a red BMW came barreling towards them, shattering everything they were once looking forward to. But this doesn't seem to be just a tragic accident. This is the case of 22-year-old Fraser Bum, the son of multi-millionaires who allegedly sped up to extreme speeds as he headed directly towards the 4 women. He denies that this was murder, but the prosecution and many members of the public say otherwise. Today, we dive into the details of what happened on the evening of October 17th, 2023, as well as the aftermath that occurred as a result. In the end, we will be asking, was this just a tragic mistake, or is this privileged young man using his money and connections to get away with a horrific quadruple murder? I want to start this case by introducing the 4 beautiful, vibrant young women who lost their lives. 20-year-old Niamh Ralston, 21-year-old Peyton Stewart, Asha Weir, and Deslyn Williams. All 4 young women attended Pepperdine University in Malibu, California, and were a part of the Alpha Phi sorority. They were all known as being close friends, spending every moment they could surrounded by one another and their larger group of friends. Each and every one of them impacted the lives of so many people around them, carrying a vivacious, lively energy around them. Niamh Ralston is the daughter of Tracy and David Ralston, and she had a brother, Connor. She grew up in Los Angeles, attending Oaks Christian High School before attending Pepperdine to study business administration. From there, she planned to earn her MBA in business analytics. Growing up, she competed in gymnastics before joining the cheerleading team in high school. Those who knew her described her as a kind-hearted girl who loved openly and deeply. She was an active listener, always offering advice or just a listening ear whenever a friend needed it. She was outgoing and adventurous. She loved traveling anywhere she could and made friends easily. In fact, she was always that person to offer friendship and embrace new people. She's honestly my favorite kind of person because I'm not like that at all. Being an introvert, I've always loved having that one person around who's just willing to talk to you and make you feel comfortable when you're the new person in the group, and that is exactly the impression I get from Niamh. She left a lasting impression on everyone she met, and the friendships she did curate lasted a lifetime. She was self-assured, confident, intelligent, and had so much life ahead of her. Peyton Stewart was born and raised in Westwood, New Jersey by her parents Carmela and Barry Stewart, and she had a little sister, Kathleen, who she was very close with. She attended the Academy of the Holy Angels in Demarest, New Jersey, before enrolling in Pepperdine University, where she studied international business. According to friends of Peyton's, she was one of the best friends you could ever ask for. Whether it was a movie night and popcorn, going out shopping, or just going to daily errands, Peyton was always down. She was also very adventurous, spending time in London to study abroad back in 2021. There, her roommates recall her always being so nurturing and loving. She would always help the other girls pick out their outfits, do their hair and makeup. She was always there to listen or be a shoulder to cry on. She was definitely the mom of the friend group. Peyton was so ambitious, driven, and confident. For her, if there was a will, there was a way. She had big dreams, and she was set on achieving them. Asha Weir was born in Belfast, Ireland, to Vinita and Mark Weir, but she grew up in Skippack, Pennsylvania, with her brothers Michael and Jamie. There, she attended Perkiomen Valley High School before enrolling at Pepperdine University to study English writing and rhetoric. Asha was described as gentle, empathic, and loving. She was brave, courageous, and wise beyond her years. She was a huge Swiftie, attending the Eras Tour with her best friend, and she just had the absolute best time there. Asha was known to find beauty in everything she did, whether it was her morning coffee, something she made in ceramics class, her writings, or photos she took. She romanticized the mundane, and that is how she lived every day of her life. She was just a calming presence for others, bringing peace and wisdom in the midst of chaos. To highlight just how loving and sweet she was, one friend shared a text Asha sent to her, which read, "I've always thought people are the whole point of life. We're meant to love and be loved and share this experience with people, and the ones we choose to do that with will live eternally in our hearts. I just think that's so beautiful, and I just believe that's what life, at least mine, is about." Just reading that, I think, truly highlights how much Asha appreciates the little things in life and how intentional she was about living her life the way she wanted, surrounded by those she loved most. Last but certainly not least, Deslyn Williams was the only child born to Olive and Desmond Williams in Atlanta, Georgia. She attended St. Pius High School before enrolling at Pepperdine University as a pre-med biology major. Deslyn was known as being very intelligent, always excelling in academics all throughout her life. Beyond her smarts, she was known to have a radiant personality with an infectious smile. She had a way of making everyone feel special. She was everyone's hype woman in everything they did. Whether she was taking a photo of you or pep talking you before a test, she never failed to hype you up, make you feel excited and confident. Also, another one of my favorite types of people. She was non-judgmental, and she would drop literally anything to help a friend. She loved good food and was obsessed with Jenny's Splendid ice cream gooey butter cake. She too was so open and giving and never let her friends forget just how much she loved them. Now, I know I've spent a bit of time describing each girl, but they are who this case is truly about, and I wanted to make sure you really feel like you got to know each and every one of them. Deslyn, Asha, Peyton, and Niamh all seemed like such amazing young women who were so loved by so many people. It's no wonder they were all so close, hearing about how loving, how giving, how adventurous and open they all were. They all had such promising futures ahead of them before those futures were all ripped away from them within seconds, all because of the careless, dangerous actions of one man. It was around 8:30 p.m. on the evening of October 17th, 2023, when Asha, Deslyn, Niamh, and Peyton all drove together to a sorority mixer event located at a frat house near La Costa Beach in Malibu. They parallel parked their car in a designated parking area on the side of the Pacific Coast Highway, also called the PCH. They had just gotten out of their car and started walking towards their event, when all of a sudden, a red BMW came barreling towards them at an extremely high speed before slamming right into them. Those girls never stood a chance. They never saw anything coming. The collision was so sudden, so severe, the impact so forceful that 20-year-old Niamh and then 21-year-old Peyton, Asha, and Deslyn were all killed instantly on impact. After the collision, a few passerbys who saw the wreckage pulled over and got out of their cars to see what was going on. It was obvious to these witnesses that this red BMW had plowed into multiple cars and killed multiple people. As they walked up to the scene, they saw the driver get out of the car and try to leave the scene. So these witnesses ran over to him and basically had to pin him down to prevent him from fleeing as they called emergency services. Once police arrived, they went over to the 4 victims who were tragically pronounced dead at the scene. They then went over to the driver, later identified as 22-year-old Fraser Bohm, a rich kid from Malibu. Now, let's talk a bit about Fraser Bohm. He is the youngest of 3 children born to Brooke and Christopher Bohm. Chris works as the vice president of sales at a medical equipment manufacturer based in Palo Alto, while Brooke owns a photography business, though it seems that Chris is definitely the breadwinner of the family. Growing up, Fraser attended a private prep school for $32,000 per year. While in high school, he was a star baseball player and did well in classes by all accounts, though little is known about what he did once he graduated. What we do know is that once he turned 18, he was gifted his red BMW for his birthday. At some point, Brooke and Chris were divorced, and according to records, Brooke was awarded their $8.7 million grand estate in the hills of Malibu. That is where Fraser and his two older sisters were living at the time of the crash, while Chris was actually living in Nashville. From what I can find, that is pretty much all we know about Fraser and his family. Essentially, it appears that he's from a very well-off family who seemingly handed him everything in life and didn't seem to expect much from him in return. Now going back to the scene of the crash. As it happens in so many cases like this one, Fraser, of course, survived the crash and was left with only very minor injuries. He was alert and coherent enough for officers to do a field sobriety test, which let officers know that he did not appear to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time. But right away, based on what limited information they gathered at the scene, it was clear that Fraser was likely speeding and driving very recklessly when he caused this accident. It wasn't a situation of these four women crossing the road when they shouldn't have, a lapse in judgment on their part. They were on the side of the road in a parking area where they should have been safe when a car plowed right into them. So Fraser was taken to the hospital to treat his minor injuries. At that time, I do believe a toxicology screen was run where it was confirmed that he was not on drugs or alcohol, before he was arrested on suspicion of vehicular manslaughter.
4 people are dead after a violent crash in Malibu. The LA Sheriff's Department says a driver was heading down PCH when he lost control, slammed into several parked cars, and then hit 4 women who were walking alongside the road. This morning, Pepperdine University put out a statement saying it believes the women were all students from the Malibu campus. Deputies arrested the driver on suspicion of vehicular manslaughter. They do not believe drugs or alcohol played a factor in the crash.
Now, it's important to explain the history behind where the crash took place. The Pacific Coast Highway is an approximately 656-mile long stretch of highway that runs along the coast in California. It's known for its beautiful scenery along the way, boasting views of cliffs, beaches, and adorable coastal towns. But the part that runs through Malibu, the part where Niamh, Peyton, Asha, and Deslyn were killed, has a much darker reputation. Locals even refer to this part as the dead man's curve. That is because of the number of fatal crashes that have happened on this road in recent years. Since 2010, Dead Man's Curve has claimed over 60 lives, and this is due to a number of different factors according to experts. Of course, it is a very touristy area, so people are constantly visiting the area. While there are designated parking areas, there are no bike lanes or sidewalks, and there is a very limited space to pull over outside of those parking spots. Then people who are visiting this spot may not be aware of their surroundings as you may be if you are a local. When you're visiting somewhere, you tend to let your guard down a bit. Maybe when you're walking along the road or even crossing the street, you're distracted by the beautiful cliffs and ocean views ahead of you. That, along with the steep curve, it can be hard to see the oncoming traffic that's about to peek around the corner. So if you are crossing the road, you may not see a car that's coming around the corner until it's too late. Officials have said that for whatever reason, ever since COVID, street racing has also become much more popular on this part of the road. So mix that with unsuspecting tourists and already limited visibility, it's a recipe for disaster. Californians had been fighting for change for years to try to make Dead Man's Curve safer. They want more safety campaigns to raise awareness on the realities of reckless driving, more speed cameras, and more law enforcement in the area. Unfortunately, these 4 women weren't the first to lose their lives on this road, and while some change has happened, they likely won't be the last unless improvements are continuously implemented. With all of that being said, you might think that because of where this happened, this case should be a relatively open and shut one. A driver was speeding on a dangerous road, and 4 lives were unfortunately lost. Irresponsible, but it happens. But that isn't at all what happened here, because this isn't just the case of someone speeding and incorrectly miscalculating how fast they can take a curve in the road. This is the case of someone who acted with such recklessness, who showed such a blatant disregard for human life, that law enforcement believes that he deserves nothing less than an absolute hammer coming down on him for his actions. And when I tell you why, everything will start to make so much more sense. First, like I said, after the crash took place, there were multiple witnesses who pulled up to the scene to help out with all the chaos. Turns out there had been multiple people who saw Fraser on the road before the crash took place, and some of them even followed him because they just knew that he was bound to get someone hurt based on how he was behaving. The first witness was Victor, a Malibu resident of over 35 years. He told officers that he had been driving along Fraser on the highway on the evening of October 17th. Security footage from the area did confirm that his blue GMC pickup truck was driving in close proximity to Fraser just minutes before the crash. Victor said that even though he initially had been about 100 yards behind Fraser, he noticed the red BMW driving very erratically and swerving all over the highway just past Sunset Boulevard. He was able to catch up to him at a stoplight by Las Flores Street. At the light, Victor noticed that Fraser had his phone between his legs under the steering wheel and appeared to be texting. He rolled down his window and yelled to Fraser, "Hey, you need to be careful, you're gonna get yourself hurt." Fraser ignored him, and as soon as the light turned green, Fraser took off with, quote, extreme acceleration. Just seconds later, Victor saw the crash, including the multiple cars and the 4 victims, and decided to pull over. Now, when I say he saw the crash, I don't mean that he saw the crash happen. He saw the aftermath of the crash. He knew that this guy caused the accident literal seconds after telling him to be careful. Once out of his car, he walked straight over to Fraser, and he was one of the men who held him down as he tried to flee to make sure that he had to be held accountable for the carnage he just caused. Another witness, Miguel, had a similar story to tell. He said that he was at a stoplight behind this red BMW before seeing it take off with extreme speed, veering between lanes and swerving between cars. Minutes later, he also pulled up to the crash site where he saw Victor sitting with Fraser. Michael also sat with the 2 of them, making sure he couldn't flee the scene. I do also want to note that Miguel said that although Victor was frustrated and obviously upset at what he saw at the scene, Victor wasn't overly angry. He wasn't, berating Fraser or anything like that. He was basically just saying to Fraser, look what happened, look what you caused, look what you did. It's not like he was trying to attack him or beat him up. He wasn't overly angry or aggressive or anything like that. He was just trying to make sure that Fraser stayed on the scene and had to be held accountable for what he did, because it would later be argued that Victor was the one that was angry. He was the one causing issues. He was the one that had all this road rage. So I do just want to note that Miguel said that Victor did seem relatively composed given the situation. So From what those witnesses told police, we can already see that Fraser was driving erratically and dangerously without a care in the world for anyone's safety, including his own. From there, police went ahead and looked at the data stored in Fraser's car. This included the information stored in the vehicle's black box, aka the event data recorder. The black box records deployment and non-deployment events in which there is an extreme change in velocity in the vehicle. So it's not like this black box is tracking all of the movements that are happening anytime you drive the car, but it's tracking, whenever it thinks that an accident is happening. But it can track the movements down to the millisecond, so it can show just how long it took to accelerate, decelerate, and come to a stop when the crash happened. Using this data, officers also used advanced technology to generate a 3D model of the scene to give a visual representation to what happened. The black box data recorded 3 events on the night of October 17th and 5 seconds of pre-crash statistics. Now, the speed limit in the area where the crash happened is 45 miles per hour. But the black box data showed that Fraser had accelerated to 104 miles per hour just seconds before the crash. So he was already going 100 miles per hour, but he continued to accelerate as he was going towards the women. So now I'm going to read directly from the state's motion where they further explain the tech stream data they collected. At the time the students walked away from the car, Fraser was traveling directly towards them, his vehicle traveling in the same direction as the victim's vehicle was parked. Fraser accelerated his car to 104 miles per hour as this happened. He passed another car on the right side, then sideswiped a parked car 2.5 seconds after reaching 104 miles per hour. So I want to pause at this point to just sort of summarize what we already just read. As Fraser was getting closer and closer to the parked cars, heading directly towards them, sideswiping another car, he did not slow down. He sped up until he hit the cars. In any normal accident, if you are speeding and about to hit something, you will naturally slam on the brakes or try to swerve or something to avoid a collision. Fraser not only didn't try to brake, but he sped up, showing that he may have intentionally hit those parked cars. The motion goes on to state that at the first point of collision, Fraser's vehicle recorded its speed at 99 miles per hour. The car continued forward, going up the curb. The 4 victims were between Fraser's vehicle and their own as they walked along the curb. Fraser struck the 4 women and then their vehicle. At the second point of collision, the vehicle recorded its speed at 97 miles per hour. The car struck the rear end of the victim's car with such force that it crumbled and then pushed it forward and onto its side. The vehicle slid on its side for about 100 feet, coming to a rest partially in the center turning lane. Fraser's BMW continued driving forward after this collision. It was now traveling at 70 miles per hour before rear-ending a third parked car which had someone still inside. The car and the occupant, who did survive and suffered only minor injuries, thankfully, were pushed about 50 feet before both cars finally came to a stop. The total distance traveled between when Fraser sideswiped that first car to when he rear-ended that third car was about 187 feet. Of course, learning this information from the vehicle's black box is jarring. First, the speed he was going at, 100 miles per hour, is felony speeding. Plain and simple. It's reckless, dangerous, and there is absolutely no reason for anyone to be driving that fast. Second, according to the data, it shows that he was headed directly for the 4 girls and he still sped up. He was losing control of the car. He saw that he was headed for the parked car. He saw that he was headed towards people walking on the sidewalk and the curb. He didn't slow down. He didn't try to avoid an accident. The data shows that he sped up as he drove straight for those 4 girls before slamming into them, killing them and injuring others. Based on this information, just a week after his initial arrest, 22-year-old Fraser Boehm was arrested and charged with 4 counts of vehicular manslaughter and now 4 counts of murder. He pleaded not guilty to his charges and was given a $4 million bail. He, of course, posted bail, so he's been awaiting his trial at home in his parents' multi-million-dollar mansion. From there, he had his first court appearance where his charges were upheld. After that, this case has been going through the court system very slowly with multiple more court hearings to decide whether the charges are appropriate. Scheduling and rescheduling the trial, all of that. By October of 2024, another preliminary hearing was held where more information about this case came out. This hearing was where we learned the information about the witnesses, the black box data. Everything I've explained to you up to this point is what the prosecution was arguing at that preliminary hearing. On the other hand, in those initial hearings, the defense claimed that Fraser was actually only speeding because he was trying to get away from a road rage incident. He explained the situation that happened at the light very differently than how Victor explained it. I sort of foreshadowed this earlier, but the defense said that Victor was actually the one acting recklessly, making Fraser fear for his safety. That is actually why he took off so quickly and why he was driving so erratically, causing him to lose control of the car. However, the problem with this argument is that there's really no evidence to support it, at least not at this time. His defense attorney claimed that Fraser told police this story during his initial interviews with them, but as far as I've seen, that does not appear to be true. Now, not a lot has been released about what exactly was said during Fraser's initial interviews with police. We know that he told officers that he's from the area, regularly drives along the Pacific Coast Highway, and even knows the area like the back of his hand. He is very familiar with how touristy the area is and how many pedestrians are known to be walking along the road at any given time. He acknowledged that he knew how dangerous it was to speed along the road, saying that he's actually had 2 friends die in car accidents from speeding. Then, when it came to the crash itself, he said that he must have been driving fast when he lost control of the car. Maybe he was distracted, sending a text when he veered off. He did say that he was driving fast and trying to avoid cars, but no specific mention was made of him being run off the road by an angry driver. The first mention of that specifically was made by his defense attorney 8 days later when the attorney went on a radio talk show. So I guess the argument could technically be made that when Fraser said, "I was speeding trying to avoid cars," he meant I was trying to avoid a road rage incident. That absolutely can and likely will be argued, but it can also be argued that he admitted that he knew he was speeding. He knew that he was driving recklessly, but tried to downplay how dangerous his actions were by saying, "Well, I was avoiding the other cars. I was veering between them, so I wasn't hitting anybody." I also will note that according to his own cell phone data, no texts or calls were made in the seconds before the crash happened. So no, he was not looking down at his cell phone, sending a text distracted when he lost control, as if that makes it any better, but that does not appear to be the case.
Speeding at the speeds of 104 miles an hour on a 45 mile an hour zone on PCH when he lost control of his BMW. We're charging Fraser Michael Bond of Malibu with 4 counts of murder and 4 counts of gross vehicular manslaughter.
Mr. Bond, sir, you have a right to have a preliminary hearing, sir.
About the speed at which he is alleged to have traveled, the deputy DA in court said,
You can't navigate at 104 miles an hour. So when you are choosing to drive at that speed in what is essentially a residential area, it's not an accident, it's an inevitability. Another car veered him off the road.
Defense attorney Michael Kraut told the court and then us that there was another driver involved that night in what he described as a road rage incident.
That started at Duke's, that this person chased him and tried to push him off the side of the road, and when he accelerated to get away from him, that's when the accident occurred.
Kraut says his office has unsuccessfully tried multiple times to reach out to detectives to say he has evidence to provide. And on another point, Bohm was allegedly texting.
He actually specifically said he doesn't know if he was texting because he knows he was texting at Duke's at the stoplight, which is okay to text at a stoplight.
And that, says Kraut, is when the other driver was yelling at him
and bullying him. And this person, according to a distant family member, has a history of exceptionally erratic behavior in the car when he doesn't like somebody else's driving.
After this first hearing, when the charges were upheld by August of this year, 2025, Fraser's family hired a new lawyer, Alan Jackson, who some of you may know as the criminal defense attorney who represented Karen Reed. This was another very high-profile case, and Alan Jackson helped her get an acquittal for her boyfriend John O'Keefe's death. That case also involved a possible hit and run, which may have resulted in John's death. So I guess his family felt that if he got her off, I guess he can also get Fraser off. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be getting into Karen's case too much, but that case is so vastly different than Fraser's case. With John O'Keefe's death, there were so many questions as to who is even responsible. There is a very good possibility that Karen didn't even hit John, given the evidence they had. Even if she did hit him, they did not have enough evidence to prove it. That case was absolutely bungled by officers, and there may have been some sort of cover-up going on since John was found in front of a friend's house whose family is close with the local police. That case has so many layers, and no matter what you believe about Karen's culpability, they did not have enough evidence to convict her of murder, and in my opinion, that is why she was acquitted. Not necessarily because she had a good lawyer, although I'm sure that played a huge role in it as well. However, with Fraser, there is absolutely no question. He killed those 4 women. He is going to serve time. The only question is, can he be convicted of actual murder, or is it just going to be the vehicular manslaughter? Now, Alan Jackson did file a motion to dismiss the murder charges. He argued that Fraser is grossly overcharged and that a vehicle collision does not amount to an intentional murder. He said that there are 2 prongs for a murder charge to stand. The objective prong, which requires an action to have a high probability of death, and the subjective prong, which requires the defendant to be aware of the high probability of death, yet chooses to ignore it. Jackson argues that speeding, even extreme speeding, does not meet the high probability of death threshold, so even though Fraser's actions were dangerous, there is not enough here to be considered malice. He also argued that Fraser didn't even know how fast he was going, so he didn't know how dangerous his actions were.
It's been a murder case. It was wildly overcharged from the very beginning. Fraser Bohm has never been and will never ever be a murderer. He did not intentionally or with any kind of an implied malice take any lives. This was a tragedy. It's a tragic accident, and unfortunately, I think what we have is a classic situation of emotion overtaking the reason that both the DA's office and the court system is supposed to make sure is engaged at every single proceeding. It was overfiled, it was overcharged, he was held to answer improperly, and we're going to make sure that the law in California is upheld on his behalf. That does not take away from the tragedy of what happened, but what we need is some reason and some judgment about what actually occurred that day. This, at best, at most, is a manslaughter case, and we'll defend that all day long. What we don't want to do is walk in with an inappropriate charge and have the jury inappropriately charged with murder allegations when it never should have happened.
However, the judge in this case said that there actually is enough evidence to fulfill both prongs. He said that although speed alone doesn't constitute malice, the conditions of where Fraser was driving along with the speed fulfills the high probability of death threshold. Again, he was driving over 100 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. As I stated earlier, Fraser himself claimed to have known the highway like the back of his hand. He knows that it is a busy road full of tourists, homes, and tons of other vehicles. He knew that driving that fast was extremely dangerous, thus meeting the high probability of death. Plus, it's not like he was driving on a highway in Arizona or somewhere else where everyone around him is going 80 or 90, and he sort of just zoned out and didn't realize how fast he was going. You know, he's driving, listening to music, and he looks down, he goes, oh shit, I'm going like 100. When you're in a 45 mile per hour zone, you are going to be very aware that you are going significantly faster than everyone else around you. They also argued that even though Fraser began to literally lose control of his car, he was going 100 miles per hour, was starting to lose control. He literally felt that he couldn't control his car. He was still choosing to accelerate faster. Therefore, he was aware of the dangers of his actions. He was choosing to further lose control of his car, yet he chose to ignore it and did it anyways, which that just blows my mind. The fact that someone is behind the wheel of a car, they're going so fast and they're like, oh my God, I'm going so fast that I cannot even control my own car. And yet they continue to speed up. There was one time I was taking a curve a little bit too fast on the highway and it freaked me out so bad that now I'm like, okay, I need to make sure that never happens again because that freaked me out that bad. Even just taking a curve a little bit too fast, and I know I'm not like some 22-year-old rich kid, but even then, almost losing control of the car to think that you would speed up, I just can't imagine what mindset you have to be in to be so reckless as to do that. For those reasons, Jackson's motion was actually denied, and Fraser was ordered to stand trial. From there, the judge ordered a subpoena of Victor's phone, the witness we heard from earlier. They actually want to extract the GPS and texting data from October of 2023 to see if there is any evidence to support the defense's argument that Victor is responsible for a road rage incident. Again, this was 2 years prior, so just knowing that they're trying to extract the data now shows that they probably don't have any evidence and they're really reaching at this point. So I don't know if they're going to get anything from that, but if they do, the judge has ordered the next hearing to be in January of 2026. So as of right now, the actual trial date has not yet been set. But I imagine there's going to be more delays and delays and delays because Fraser's family has the money to continue doing whatever they can to prolong this case as long as they can. So that's where the case sits as of right now. Again, of course, Fraser's family is standing behind him and they have the money to keep putting into the case to continue to prolong it further and further, anything to delay a trial and continue these hearings and keep their precious little angel out of jail. With everything we know about this case, I will say that I'm surprised that the state is going for murder charges. I do think it will be difficult to prove intent. The only real thing they have going for them is that data which shows that he continued to accelerate when he was already headed towards the women. To me, that does say a lot, but I'm not sure if a jury will think it's enough. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think this is a case of a spoiled little brat who didn't think of anyone but himself. I think he is selfish and maybe he was angry or just looking for a thrill. Who knows? But we see it all the time. These uber rich kids, sheltered kids whose parents expect nothing from them, have everything handed to them with no responsibility, just go out into the world and act a fool because they're looking for something, anything to make them feel something. They take advantage of others, engage in reckless behavior, and treat others like shit, frankly, because they were never made to face consequences. Anytime they did something wrong, their parents cleaned it up for them. I have a sneaking suspicion that that's exactly how Fraser grew up, and his parents are continuing in that cycle as we can see right now. No matter their son killed 4 young women in such a horrific, terrifying, brutal way, their baby needs to be protected. That's all his parents care about. They don't care about their son taking accountability. They don't care about him facing consequences. They just care about him getting away with it and him being protected. After hearing all the details in this case, I do hope that Fraser is convicted of murder, frankly. What he did was completely reckless and dangerous. I do hope that he has to face the harshest consequences, not just to find justice for Niamh, Peyton, Asha, and Deslyn, but to set a precedent, to show young men and women that it's just not worth it. Street racing, driving recklessly, extreme speeding, it has real consequences. If we show people that driving dangerous may result in life in prison rather than just a hefty ticket or a few years in jail, then maybe people will think twice. Maybe people will realize that their actions have real consequences on the people around them. None of these women deserve to lose their lives. Niamh, Peyton, Asha, and Deslyn all deserved to graduate, start their careers, and live their lives to their fullest. They were all loved by so many people, and because of one entitled little brat, so many people are suffering immeasurable grief and loss. And for that, I sincerely hope justice is served to the greatest extent. As with any case with any loose ends, I will try to keep you all updated as more information comes out. I will let you know once we see a trial on this case and what comes of that trial, though I doubt that will happen anytime soon. But if a lot more comes out, I will make a new video or just keep you all updated in the description box below. But with that, you all heard what I think, so now I want to hear from you all. What do you think of this case? Do you think the charges are appropriate? Is there enough here to convict Fraser of murder, or will it be too hard to prove to a jury? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you liked this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, Facebook, and TikTok. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.